It's not very familiar.
Harry, for whom did you have your insight? Some chef over here.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
All right.
Trying to take darling.
Ladies and gentlemen, start your engine.
Oh, okay.
That's fine.
Oh, wow. That's a big deal. Wow, wow. They might be in White Oak. Okay.
So,
This will be on the test.
it's on the final. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, good morning. I want to welcome Suri. Probably pronounce your last name. Kinsbrunner, okay. Kinsbrunner from Baltimore, well, Silver Spring, which I was at only one time in my life. And hopefully we'll be joining our fair community in the near future. Bezrat Hashem. Okay, good. So before we start, we learn as always in memory of Avigdor Chayav ben Rachel Leah Mer Tzvi. The Shema should have an aliyah. In addition to that, also 34 years, Martin's father, Rav Asher Michiel ben Rav Tzvi Lifshitz, who I knew, and was instrumental in bringing Herzl's body to Israel. He was the man. If you go to Har Herzl, you will see a plaque in honor of him. In addition to that, a friend of Judy, Alice Zichronah Libracha, her neshama should have an aliyah as well. In Kvar Azkar, my father's yard side's coming up, so for Louis Nishmat, my father as well, 5 years. Okay, thank you. I thought so too. I think so. We're in the last Mishnah of chapter 2. Before we get into the Mishnah, I was asked to give a little bit of background on Rabbi Tarfon, whom we talked about at the prior Mishnah. Now, the prior Mishnah, Rabbi Tarfon said that, let me just put it up on my screen here, just a second. Rabbi Tarfon, in the second to last, or the penultimate Mishnah of chapter 2, Rabbi Tarfon said that the day is short, there's a lot of work, the workers are lazy, there's a tremendous amount of reward, and Balabai Dochek meaning Hashem. Okay, so we already discussed this Mishnah, but because it was introduced, as said by Rabbi Tarfon, I haven't gone through like every single one of the Tanaim and said who was what, but this one I think it's. I'm glad you asked me, Judy, because they're always worthwhile to talk about individuals, but in this particular case, there is a good reason to talk about it. Talk about him. First of all, just as a note, he was the student of Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakkai. You all know that he's one of my heroes, which is why the Jewish history class started with him many, many months ago. Interestingly enough, there's a Gemara I think it was in Kiddushin, but I forgot, that talks about the qualities of various rabbis. One rabbi was extolling the praises of others. And Rabbi Tarfon, it says, was a gal shel egozim. Literally means a pile of nuts. Now, imagine getting up and introduce, I'm going to get up and introduce Harav Sabato, say, he's a gal shel egozim, a pile of nuts. So people who don't have a clue what that means will go like, what? And the others are going to go, oh, okay, he must learn the Gemara in Kiddushin. I think it's Kiddushin, I'm not sure. Anyways, so what does it mean? So I want you to picture, you go into the store and you have a whole pile of cashews or whatever it is, and you take one out. What happens to that pile? You take one out from the middle or so, it starts to move around, crumble, and not to fall, but to move around. So it says that he was so smart, his knowledge was so wide and breadth that when the student would ask him one thing, it would shake everything around. He'd be like, all the sources all of a sudden would come from everywhere. There was a man, Rav Moshe Hershler, Zichrono Livracha, who used to live here, lived here for many, many years. He was in Chicago for a few years as Rosh Yeshiva Skokie. And when I read this Gemara, in preparation for today, I said, that's one of the few people I know like that. You would say something, you'd ask him a question, he'd go like this for like 10 seconds, and then he would start rattling off all of our Bavli, Yerushalmi, Midrash, just like that. And I'm lucky if I remember what I ate this morning for breakfast. In any case, so the reason I think it's important to know who he was is that he almost every Tana, almost again the Tanaim, but the rabbis in the time the Mishnah, had a specific quality or qualities that we could learn from. And one of the things we learned from him is kibud avim. There are a couple of stories. I'm only going to read one of them to you. It's very short. And I'll translate it in Aramit. Rabbi Tarfon Havilei Ima, Dechol Ima Tahavi Bayo and Mesak Lepuria, Gachin Vesalik way. That Rabbi Tarfon, what he did was he treated his mother in a unique way. What did he do? Every time that she wanted to go into bed, he would help her get onto the bed. And whenever she wanted to get off the bed, she would step on him. Notice what did he do? He made himself as a little footstool. She would climb into the bed and climb off of him. So they came and they praised him in the Beit Midrash, like what an unbelievable kibbud avim this was. Amrile, they said to him, you still haven't even gotten to half the level of what kibbud avim really is. Says, as a matter of fact, did you ever have yourself in a situation? This is a classic example that she took your money, your wallet, and threw it into the river. You just said, okay. Did you ever even go through that test? What does that mean? He wasn't looking for praise. That's not what he was looking for. That's what the people were talking about, that you have to understand that kibbud avim is such a tremendously important mitzvah, and it's what's considered the hardest mitzvah. It really is considered the hardest. So I had a student the other day I was learning with. We were talking about kibbud avim, and he looked at me, stopped for a second, he said, wait a minute. Kibbud. I said, yeah, it means to honor, but it means something else. The shorish is kaf bet daled. He says, I said, what's kaf bet daled? He thinks is kaved, heavy. I said, what's right? Why would heavy? And by the way, your liver's called your kaved. Why? He said, oh, it's a heavy mitzvah. I said, yeah, it's a heavy burden. It's a burden in quotes, of course. And your liver's your heaviest internal organ, which is why it's called the kaved. Yeah, pretty cool. Anyways, so that's about Rabbi Tarfon. What I want to do is take a look at the last Mishnah, where the last Mishnah says, Hu haya omer. Now, I came across something, it was unsourced, so I can't tell you if it's true or not. I don't know. It's that there are 4 stanzas in the Mishnah, and that originally was 3, and the last one was added, which actually makes sense to me when we go into the next Mishnah afterwards, but I don't know. What do I? Okay, Hu haya omer. This is again the last Mishnah, and finally, when we get into chapter 3, I'll be on the same page with the number of the Mishnah, because the printings of the chapter 2 are all over the place. Because mine is Tet Zion, number 16 for this, but I don't know what yours is. What does yours say? 20, 30, Kafala, 20. Yeah, okay, it's all over the place. Okay, anyways, Hu haya omer. This is Rabbi Tarfon. He used to say, Lo alecha hamlacha ligmor. It's not upon you to finish the work. But you don't have the right to say, I'm not going to do it. If you learned a lot of Torah, then you will get, they will give you a lot of reward. And the the employer is very faithful to pay your wages. And know that the reward for the righteous is in the world to come. Okay, so there is, even though there's really a lot to dig into here, I'm going to talk a little bit about it. Also going to read you a story. It's not once upon a time, it's a true one. And there's no king, and there's no forest. Ever noticed so many that Mishalim is a king in a forest, and an old wood, and a prince, right, exactly, yeah. And a princess, right? And a pea sometimes as well. So anyways, then the idea of lo hamlacha ligmor. In the parasha 2 weeks ago, and I've said this before, but it fits in here now. In the parasha 2 weeks ago, Hashem tells Avraham Avinu, go outside, usforat hakochavim, and count the stars, in tuchal, if you're able to. And Hashem says to him, Kol yezarecha, so shall your children be. The pshat, the simple meaning is, just like there's an unbelievable amount of stars, so too there'll be an unbelievable amount, which we don't know, but whatever. Other reasons that the stars only can be seen in the dark, and that's when the Jews really shine, so to speak. There's all kinds of things. But there's a midrash that says that when Abraham went outside, Hashem says to him, Usforat hakochavim im tuchal, count the stars if you're able to. He started to. 1, 2, 3, 4, even though he knew there was no way he'd finished counting them. And Hashem says, Ko yezarecha. That's how your children are going to be. Even though they know they're not going to finish the job, they know they have a job to try and start. So you're not going to finish Kol HaTorah Kula, probably, unless you're Reb Kanievsky Zatzal, or you're somebody on that level, right? You're not. The average person is not misugal, is not able to do something like that. That doesn't mean that you're patur from learning. Yes. We're talking about serving Hashem. What doesn't say avodah, it says melacha. What is the work? What's the work? Good, excellent question. What do you think it is? It means, that's a rhetorical question. Serving Hashem, because we understand that we are an Eved Hashem, we are avadim. It doesn't mean slaves, it means servants of Hashem. But being a servant entails work. We have to do something. I don't know about a server. That sounds more like a person who's a waitress or a waiter. No, maybe, I don't know, but I would only think that term for like a waiter. I don't know, I'm not sure. But it tells us that we don't that's davening. It's called avodah shebelev, right? It says v'avatan, you should serve Hashem. So it says ezohi avodah shehi balev. Right, so here's called melacha, but we're not talking only about avodah of davening. This is the all-encompassing idea, right? What we do, it says Adam la'amal yulad. A person is born to work. We're here to schwitz, to toil. We're here to do something. It doesn't just happen by itself. We have partially also Adam HaRishon to blame for that. You know, we have to work for our food. It doesn't just pop up from the ground like it will. It says the Yemot HaMashiach to be gluska, it would be like lachmaniot growing in the ground, which is kind of cool. That's we'll really see how motzi lechem min haaretz. By the way, that's the truth. There's what? Breadfruit. Yes. Hey, there you go. So just don't invite me over for that, please. Thank you very much. In any case, there's another meaning here. It has to do with how you work on yourself, on your life. Lo alecha hamlacha ligmor means do not. I've said many times, you don't ever expect the day after Yom Kippur to be perfect. If you do, you just set yourself up for failing. That's not what Yom Kippur is about. But you always need to be able to say, I'm growing, I'm changing. I want to at least grow. So when it says we know that you're not going to be perfection. It's not going to reach that way or reach to that point. But you can't say, and therefore, since I won't be able to be perfect, why bother trying? You know what a syllogism is? A syllogism is a false truth. For example, what is it that brings perfection? Shoot. What? Practice makes right. Thank you. Practice makes perfect, but nobody's perfect, so therefore why practice? That's called a syllogism. Okay, a false truth. So it's a false truth to say that, oh, we're supposed to be, perfect Jews, supposed to do our best and everything. But I'm not going to finish it anyways. Why bother? So the Mishnah says, now, why does he use the word ben chorin? What's ben chorin? What's cherut? Cherut means freedom. A ben chorin has no obligation, right? Completely free. It's like, which is why many people still to this day in Hatikva will don't like the word liot am chofshi. Chofshi min ha-mitzvot, because that has actually a halachic connotation that a person is chofshi min ha-mitzvot after they pass away. Okay, whatever. In any case, but it's the idea also, which you talked about just the other day in a different class in Tefillah, that we do our part. We do have to do our part. Hashem will help fill in the blanks. Just you have to say, I'm ready. But remember, for those of you in the Tanya class in the past, you remember we talked about the idea in Tanya that said that if I'm about to put on my tefillin, or I'm about to do any mitzvah, and I just think or I even say, look, I know I'm not going to have all the proper kavanot, I'm not going to have the exact intention, everything about this mitzvah, but I really want to do it the right way. Hashem says, as it says in Tanya, that Hashem makes it as if you've done it completely correctly. And where we know that from? But he says it's from the sentence that says, Machshava tova, HaKadosh Baruch Hu mitzarfa lema'aseh. That a good intention, God makes it to be an action. What does that mean? Most people, as he explains in Tanya, think it means, which it does, that if you have a good intention and let's say I'm planning to go to visit someone in the hospital, and all of a sudden the bus breaks down, it gets too late and I can't go. But my intention was good. It doesn't mean I wake up in the morning and say, I'm going to give $1 million to Tzedakah, I'm going to visit 36 sick people. No, that's stupid. Okay, that's ridiculous. Okay. But if I really have intention to do something and it get waylaid, that's as if I did it. So that's one opinion. In Tanya, the Admor Zaken says, it means more than that. It means when I'm about to do a mitzvah, chashavat tova, my intention is good. Hakadosh Baruch he joins it to the mitzvah. He says that intention, I'm joining it to what the mitzvah is supposed to be, and he did it perfectly. Okay, so this is part of this mission also. You can't just say I'm going to give up. You can't. We don't have that right ever to give up. We have to try. At some point, when we realize that we can't do something, what do? Then we ask for help. By the way, that's mental health, physical health, spiritual, all these things we have to try and work on. It's also a fool who would say, the second part, that, I guess it's still in the first part of the Mishnah, whatever. A fool would say that since it's so much Torah, that, why even bother beginning? Why even start? Come on. It's just, I don't even know where to begin. It's just so much. I remember I went to Hebrew school. I remember I graduated 8th grade. I did okay. But it doesn't interest me. But it's just so much. Just look at all those books, all the Hebrew and Rashi I can't read, and just give up. That's a fool. But on the other hand, you have another fool, the other extreme. The other fool is who said, I've learned so much. Enough already. Enough already. So that kind of person, I'll explain to you how ridiculous it is. I know everyone sitting here at one point or another has said to him or herself after a meal, I can't eat another thing. I can't eat another bite. Right? At some point or another. Has any of you, I'm sure the answer is no, have you ever even known anyone who said, oh my God, look at the money in my bank account. I couldn't even take another $1. No way. No one's going to do that. Right? So why would we do that with Torah? I did it. I did my part. Right? The talk I gave years ago, there's no such thing as spiritual retirement. Right? Oh, I did my gap year. I came to this, I learned like crazy. Yeah, it was 45 years ago. You go to your doctor, you walk in, he's got his 8th grade diploma. I did great in science, got an A. No, that's not what you want. So you're not a ben chorin. You're never ben chorin. You're never free from mitzvah. You're never free from melacha, working to serve Hashem. And what about those who think they are satum, like closed off? They just can't. Not everybody's going to be a big Talmud Chacham. Big genius. Not everyone's going to know Kol HaTorah Kula, because you're not. Not everyone's going to be able to, open a Chumash and be able to give you, 20 Perushim. They just think like, okay, and I dealt with plenty of kids, especially plenty of teens. Like, I can't. I don't know anything. I'm never going to really know much. I'll learn, but I'm not going to know much. I'm going to read a story to you. You might have a tissues for a second, please. Oh, thank you. Got it. Sorry. Okay. You know what's interesting? I have thought about recently that I've spoken literally thousands and thousands and thousands of times in the last 25 years, and not once, that's going to happen now, have I ever in the middle talking had to sneeze. Never. Never. I've had headaches, I've coughed, I dropped stuff. Sneezing's not happening. Okay, so now it's going to happen. You know that. I'm giving this Shabbat, I'm giving a shiur by Malka Shrive at 4 o'clock for women. Again, it's going to be at 4 o'clock. And I'll probably sneeze that. So just feel free to show up. What's that? I hope so. All right. Okay. So in Me'am Lo'ez, he quotes a story. And the source of the story is a sefer called Omer HaShichacha. It's kind of a play on words, which I'm not going to get into now. And it's written by a man named Rebbe Lazar Gabishon. Now, why am I even mentioning him? I actually looked online. I've told you before, there's a website called HebrewBooks.org. It has unbelievable tens of thousands of svarim you can't get. Many you can. Tens of thousands that are out of print for many, many years. Stuff that's printed in the 1500s, the 1600s, and they have scans of all the svarim. This happened to be one of them. I went to look up about him. Now, the only reason I'm mentioning is that for those of you who attend the Jewish history class, next week we're talking about Gerush Sfarad, the expulsion of the Jews from Spain. He is one of those people who was kicked out of Spain. So it caught my eye right away when I saw that. So I want to read this short story to you. This has to do with the idea of a person's self-image, of what they can and can't do in life. Okay. Castilla. So in Castile, which is in Spain, at that time there was its own country. I guess it was a kingdom actually in Spain called Castile. Shayalo ben Bait. Shayosek b'chatzivat avanim. There was a guy who was oh my gosh, a quarry. What do you say, guys? A quarry person, stone cutter, I guess. I guess that's what you call him. He was really good at what he did. The only thing he was able to say when it came to Torah was the word piku. That's the only word he knew. What does that even mean? Who knows? Hainu shema deker. It wasn't about Torah even. The piku was the spike that it would use, or chisel rather, that it used to chop the stone. והחכם הזה הכיר בו שיש בו כוחות נסתרים שיש לגלותם. He says, and there's this one chacham who recognized that somehow he recognized the stone mason or whatever as someone who had hidden livriyut. See, there we go. Avot Santei Nazdrovia Salu. Bless you. So Erev Shabbat Echad Amarlo. So one Erev Shabbat, the chacham went to the stone cutter and said to him, Machar on Shabbat tomorrow, Tamod ala bima v'tidrosh b'pnei. I want you to get up in the beam on the bima on the the front, and I want you to give a Shabbat drasha. I want you to speak to the people. Amar lo chotzev. So the guy said, "What are you making fun of me? How am I going to open my mouth? I don't know anything." Amar lo chacham al tidad. So the chacham said, "Don't worry. You start to say something, and I'll finish your words. I'll say the rest." His intention, the intention of the Chacham was to get this poor person in 1 second somehow to be on the center stage and enter the Torah world. The next day, Shabbat. Next day, when all the people are there in Shul, he went up on the bima. All of a sudden, he saw these people, and he's shaking, the stone cutter shaking. Piku, piku. That's all he could say. Piku, piku. So immediately the Chacham got up on the bima next to him and said, you should know. This person literally says of heavy mouth, which Moshe said about himself. Remember, he stuttered and he stammered and he lisped. And his intention when he's saying piku piku, he really was trying to give you a drasha about the pasuk pikudei Hashem yishavei misamchelev. The Torah brings joy. But he's unable to finish his sentence because he's so nervous in front of all of you. Instead, I will finish what he was going to say. And he gave a very nice talk. Afterwards, and then all of a sudden afterwards, everyone took this poor stone cutter. They walked him home on Shabbat. They were so impressed with the stone cutter. So the Chacham said to him, do you realize the tremendous honor that is brought with Torah? Leave your job and start to learn Torah. And the people will see to it that you have income. He finished, he quit his job, and he became a big Talmud Chacham. He kept going one Shabbat after another. He became the main darshan. He would get up every week and speak. Here's how he concludes the story. We see from this story, you can see within every person that you can reveal some form of hidden strength or power. This is what Shlomo means when he says, that we have within us, every single one of us has in us the ability to have something brought forth. That is part of the beauty of education. To me, that's one of the best parts of education. When you have as an adult or teen or a 7-year-old who goes like, wow, I didn't know that. That's so cool. Or they just go, light goes on and they understand something and they couldn't read Rashi and they can read Rashi. Or they didn't understand the Gemara and now they understand. That's the best part. It's nothing to, yes, you need to be a halfway decent teacher, I guess. But it's about bringing out, education is about really, besides just putting information to people's heads, it's about bringing something out of them, which I will segue into a short Dvar Torah in Kfar Azkar, because it really fits and it's almost Hanukkah. I know it's 5 weeks away or whatever it is, but it's almost Hanukkah. Yes, they are. That starts after. That's already as soon as you take your sukkah down. There. Okay, so I've given this Dvar Torah multiple times. I'm sure some of you have heard it. So those who have heard it, go to sleep. There is in Masechet Shabbat. There is a in Masechet Shabbat. There is a famous machloket that has to do with lighting candles for Hanukkah. By the way, there's no Gemara that's called Hanukkah. There's a reason. There's no Gemara, but there's no Mishnah Hanukkah. There's only Gemara, and it's Masechet Shabbat. And because the Shabbat deals with candles for Shabbat, it then deals with candles for Hanukkah. So there's among the many famous disputes of the candles is not just about you start with 1 and go to 8 or 8 down to 1, but there's another one. And the question is, Hadlaka osa mitzvah or Hanacha osa mitzvah, which means when you light your Chanukiah, does it have to be in the right place already when you light it? Let's say you're going to light it by the door. So it has to be there, and then we make the bracha, or that's Hadlaka osa mitzvah, or Hanacha osa mitzvah. That placing it is the mitzvah. So you can light it over here, and then carry it and put it down once it's lit. Halacha is Hadlaka osa mitzvah. So when you light your Chanukiah, the Chanukiah has to be in its proper location before you even light it. So I say that is a lesson in education. We all know that it's famous in the same Gemara where it says, what does it mean, Chanukah? Chanu Kafhe. They rested on the 25th, that the war was over. Shalom Yisrael, literally, Chanu Kafhe. But I say it also, we can break the word down into Chinuch Hashem. What's the Chinuch? What's the education of Hashem? What's the lesson? There are two types of teachers in general. They're the kinds who say, here's the material, or write it on the board. Go read pages 30 to 45, and then you have a test. Hanacha. They think just putting the information down in front of them, that's the mitzvah. It's not. It's hadlaka osa mitzvah. You have to put it, you have to light the fire. You have to really get them into it to understand that they're really getting something, and how much does consider that you did enough as the teacher. So you look in Parshat Behalotecha, it talks about the menorah and the Beit HaMikdash. It's first the Mishkan. It says in there, in Rashi, says, you have to light when the Kohen would light the menorah in the Beit HaMikdash. When he's only allowed to take his hand away, the flame, once the flame itself on the menorah was already taken over by itself. It wasn't going to get extinguished. So the same thing as say is true with education. You know that you've done a decent job when the Shalhevet Olam Eileha. When you see the student is now able to take over and say, okay, now I understand this and I can move ahead and go on, and I want to grow on that. And that's what this mission is about. This mission is really about growth. And what we can, and what we have that are these voices sometimes in our head that tell us you can't, you're not able, you're not worthy, you're not da. Get rid of them. It's all another talk I gave. Don't listen to the voices in your head. I just realized that. I repeat myself a lot. So, because it's similar themes. What can I say? Thank you. In card, so that's worth repeating this Shabbat. That what I'm going to be doing is something, a talk I gave a number of years ago. I'm not going to say what it is right now, but it bears. It's whatever. We'll see. We'll see if you're there. Okay. Anyways, let's go to Perek Gimel. Okay. Yes, actually, that's great. That is great. I'm glad. Thank you for mentioning that. It's very important. Now, for those of you who have ever attended a in-person or watched online a levaya here in Israel, especially in Beit Shemesh, it's done in most places, but especially in Beit Shemesh, and I didn't ever see this in the States. As they're about to go out to the kever, this Mishnah is what's read by the person leading the entourage to the kever. So, and I'm going to just mention after I read the Mishnah why that is, and then we're going to start looking at the Mishnah. Actually, I should give one kind of introductory statement. Prakim Aleph and Bet, chapters 1 and 2, were pretty much in order historically of the Tanaim of that time period. From chapter 3 are the rabbis, the time of Rabbi Akiva, which is the end of Bayit Sheni, at approximately that time period. There's a famous story at the end of Makot where he's looking at the destruction of Har HaBayit. And so in this chapter 3 are the Tanaim from that time period, but not necessarily in any order of chronological time. And then the next chapter are his students and grand students, so to speak, that are in the next chapter. Okay. Akavya ben Mahalel Omer. Look at 3 things. Pay attention to 3 things Best word in English really for that, if you probably don't have it in your English, is mark well. There's a difference between to listen or to watch and to mark. Like mark my words, right? It's very Shakespearean, but it's true. It's to mark three things, and you will not be able to sin. Da me ayin bata, know from where you come. Ulana taholech, and to where you're going. And for whom you are going to eventually give din v'cheshbon, to give an accounting or reckoning of your life. And now it goes back, and I'm not going to say it now, but we did do this in no, it wasn't time. I forgot where it was. We talk about why the mission is repeated with a series of questions, then the question and the answers. So, but I'm not going to do that now, but maybe a different time. So now he says, Me'ayin bata, where'd you come from? Tipasucha. It means a putrid drop. It's from the zera of the man into the woman. Ul'ana ta'olech, where are you going? Eventually, after 120, unless Mashiach comes later this afternoon, or even this morning, it'd be great. You're going to a place, of dirt and worms and maggots. Yeah, it's really beautiful. I just need that. I'm glad I'm not eating. For whom you are going to give an accounting at the end of the days. For the King of Kings, Holy One, blessed be his name. It's kind of a scary Mishnah. It's meant to be. It's meant to be. But let's talk about this for a little bit. Just spin the page here.
If you were sleeping, wake up.
If you were sleeping, wake up. Yeah. Okay. Yes. First of all, why is this said at a levaya? I mean, the person's gone. Person's passed away already. Right. Okay. So in Kohelet, Shlomo HaMelech says, it's better to go to a house of mourning than it is to go to a party, because a person will take to heart what life is all really truly all about. Does not mean, well, you know what that means. It doesn't. I don't need to get to that. But what does it mean when a person goes to levaya? Why is it called levaya? Because halvot, you are accompanying the person to their final place. Depending on the circumstances, different things go through some people's heads. I have a friend who just buried her father. He was 97. It's unbelievable how many people, Baruch Hashem, are in their 90s now. They're passing away. I've said this before in different contexts. For those of you who remember Johnny Carson, how many Pirke Avot classes talk about Johnny Carson? That when I was a kid, if someone reached 90, they went to Johnny Carson. He was a nonogenarian. That's how I learned the word. It was so rare to live into your 90s. Now, Baruch Hashem, I've been in this last year at least a half a dozen shiva calls that were people in their 90s. That's called seva tova. You pass away at a good. They had a good life. They had a long run. Now, to live to 90 and the last 20 years, to just be lying there in a bed, God forbid, that's not living. Okay, we're talking about living. And in most of these cases, the people I have gone to this year, Baruch Hashem, until almost near the end, they were in good shape. Okay, which is absolutely amazing. To be tzalul, to be clear. Anyways, so this Mishnah is telling us something. Like, we know that there's the pasuk says, "Shiviti Hashem lenegdi tamid." I will place God before me at all times. Okay, it's very difficult to do. That you always have an awareness of Hashem being present. But this is even beyond that. This is like, because that is a little bit more difficult. Like, I'll have Hashem in mind. I'm sitting down. Oh, I really shouldn't do that. That's right, God, you're right there. I really shouldn't do that. It's a little bit harder to do. But this mission, it really tells us, like, okay, who are you? Like, really? And after 120 years, all you're going to be, not God forbid, all that person over there is going to be is in the ground, right? I thought about this recently. I love genealogy. I belong to one of the two main websites. I really need to get to the other one more. I look at my what do you call the tree, the family tree, right? And I look back, and I see, okay, I went back like 3 or 4 or 5 generations. And I mean, I don't know who the person was. I just know that that person was my great grandfather and all. And I'm thinking, like, like 150, 200 years from now, they're not going to know who I was, right? Or, it was just my great grandfather. That's all I know about it. And maybe have a little bit of writing, a little blah, but tachlis, you know, that person is no longer here. Who, right? They won't know the who, the essence, right? Exactly. Even though you may have heard a story or two, there are a few people like you hear about, you know, like the Chafetz Chaim, and okay, but most people don't fall into that category. So you may know the name is my great grandfather, or whatever it might be. But on Pesach many years ago, I got up to speak in shul, and sitting in the front row were 4 generations, and I knew all 4 generations: the great grandfather, no, the great grandfather, the son, and the great grandson, whatever it was. And it inspired me to do something. I've been looking for it. I have to see if I can find it for the show. That was Pesach. It was on the day of saying Yizkor. The next Yizkor is Shavuot, and I wrote my Yizkor talk was I wrote a letter to my great grandchildren. Yeah, and I remember even the general idea though. I know I have it probably it's not on the computer, right, but somewhere, and it's humbling. It's humbling. You're so to speak writing to your blood descendant, and they will have never known you again. If Mashiach's not here, they'll never have known you. And you want to impart certain things and tell them who you were. What was your essence? What were Andy and I? Who were we? And to try to make that connection. By the way, that's what these parshiot are. Ele toldot Noach, right? Fine. But we have next week, we have Parshat Toldot, right? It's Chayei this week. Oh, yeah. Right. So Toldot doesn't mean history. It means the generations. We look at a chain. We don't look at history only. We look at a chain of children from one generation to the next, because it's all a form of a continuum. And again, we come back to this mission. That's what this is really about. Like who we are, where we come from, where we're going. What does that mean? It's past, present, future, right? It's all this. Well, that's why also, when you look in Parshat Vayechi, it says the Bnei Yisrael referred to as Even Yisrael, the stone of Israel. If you look in Rashi says that why we called it Even, because of, I've heard it 2 ways, either Av ben Neched, which means Abba, father, son, grandson, or Ima bat Nechta. That's also a possibility, the female, obviously. But that it's Judaism, what we're about is the continuity of the Jewish people. We're about continuing. And that this mission is telling us, you want to be part of that story. Understand where you come from. Understand what you're doing in this world. Understand what happens after 120 years. But I want to finish with just a comment on one of the last things of the mission. And next week, Bezrat Hashem, we'll go into more depth. Din v'cheshbon. A din v'cheshbon. It's an accounting. Now, first of all, in Hebrew, as you just said, in Hebrew, we have a verb, lidaveach. Lidaveach means to report. Where does it come from? Dalid vav chet, which is the word letters of din v'cheshbon. So lidaveach doesn't just mean to report, it means to give a din v'cheshbon. You get a doch if you speed, right? Doch is a ticket. Why is it called a doch? It's a din v'cheshbon. It's the same thing. So, I'm not going to answer it today. It's a question. I'll tell you the question. I'll get into it next week. And it's an answer I've given before, but I had more to add. The order is wrong. Okay. Imagine you go into court, the gavel comes down, guilty. Okay, now present your case. Because that's what din cheshbon. Din is the decision. And then the cheshbon. Why does that come afterwards? It should be cheshbon b'din. It should be chod, not doch. Okay? The chod is all like a mechanical pencil, a lead pencil, the little pieces of lead, that's called a chod. Yeah. So why is it in that order? So if you want to know the answer, see you next week. You're very welcome.